Alrighty, there we go. I'm gonna have to try to find a way to make these two things sync up at the same time. So, welcome to Monday's live show. So we're a little bit different today, where I am not coming at you at 7 o'clock in the morning because now that the sun is coming up later, the idea of the children wait until the sun comes out is not conducive to that, and I value my sleep way too much that I'm not waking up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to do it. So I'm going to be playing a little bit with time, so bear with me on that, but I want to get straight to the point. So I wanted to talk a little bit about posture, and how it could be leading to your pelvic floor dysfunction. So a little bit of a backstory for me. If you've been tuning in for a while, you know that I've had incontinence, and you know for sure that I had a very minor prolapse after the birth of my second daughter. So that is all to say my pelvic floor dysfunction really started as far back as grade 2. Grade 2 is the first time that I can think to when my pelvic floor dysfunctions could have already started taking root, if that makes sense. So I remember very distinctly sitting in the gym during some sort of assembly and looking around the gym, and everybody was sitting like this, and I was really like upright. I was taking up space. I was like nice alignment, and I don't know what got into my head. Maybe I thought I was, being too big or something, but immediately I had this thought, oh, this is the way we're supposed to sit. And I started doing that, and my posture kind of went out the window with that. I do remember my mom telling me a lot to sit up straight growing up, and it wasn't as easy as she made it feel. There was always something uncomfortable about that, and I will get to that a little bit more in a little bit. But when it comes to your posture and your alignment, it is one of the biggest contributors to pelvic floor dysfunction. And though pregnancy can contribute quite immensely, I want to explain how you could never have a child and still have symptoms of pelvic floor dysfunction simply by the way you're existing in life, your lifestyle, how to potentially the type of work you have, things that kind of, take you out of that nice posture, that nice alignment. And this isn't me saying you have to turn around and go exist in perfect posture every day going forward, but I do want to elaborate a little bit. So because the shot is so tight here, I actually have this at home from back when I was doing a show. So it hasn't made it back to my studio yet. So a lot of us, when we look at the pelvis, think that the pelvic kind of looks like a bowl and it's tilted back. This is not the optimal alignment for the pelvis. It is actually sort of tilted back this way. I'm trying to make sure it's in shot in both of these cameras here. So pubis symphysis in the front. If you think about it logistically, your vagina does not face forward when you are standing up straight. It is underneath. So right there it is pointing downward. However, in everyday life, we find ourselves specifically, I'll talk on this, it makes it a little bit more easy to understand and see, is we end up sitting back on our sacrum. So kind of just above the tailbone. A lot of us are very familiar with the tailbone, maybe not so much the sacrum, but it's kind of that flat part. And that's where we end up sitting, especially if you have a desk job or you're driving around a lot. That's the position that you kind of end up being in. So when we're in this tilted pelvis position, what this does is it shortens the muscles of the pelvic floor. It causes tension in the pelvic floor, which is an equal contributor to pelvic floor dysfunction as muscles that are too relaxed. So this position additionally can lead to lower back pain. So a lot of people who have desk jobs, I work at some offices on site weekly and kind of go over ergonomics and things like that, of ways that they can kind of take little stretch breaks and things that they can also do in their everyday life. So again, I'll go back to my little pelvis here. When we're in that tucked under position, think about those muscles in the lower back, and they're being pulled and they're being stretched out, and then they exist like that through the entire time you're sitting. And some of that position ends up getting translated into when you're not sitting, when you're standing, and you get kind of that tucked under butt, or you get that feeling like you have a flat butt. All of that kind of comes into play, and you end up existing again with this kind of overstretched lower back. At the same time, the muscles in the front, so not just the pelvic floor, are shortening and tightening, but we're also shortening and tightening through the hip flexors, through the abdominals. There's all kinds of places that are starting to get really tight. So if we want to think about this a little bit differently than the pelvic floor, because some of us are a little bit disconnected from it for various reasons, mostly because the average person does not talk about the pelvic floor in everyday life. Think about places that you do hold on to tension. For me, I wear a mouth guard. More tidbit information, because I have a very tight jaw and I grind my teeth when I sleep. If I'm not careful, I carry a lot of stress in my shoulders. So if you think about anywhere that you kind of carry on to a lot of stress, you kind of get pain in those areas, kind of clicking of your jaw, maybe some tension in there. Shoulders start to get a little sore. You kind of feel like you need a massage by the end of the day. Even thinking about carrying something that is heavy, and we end up bending our elbows and putting our muscles into a contracted position, and after not too long of carrying something, especially the heavier it is, your body starts to talk back to you and go, hey, this is kind of hurting, this isn't feeling so good. And these are kind of the more everyday things that you can kind of take that and apply it to your pelvic floor. So think about it this way: tight and short, sore. Right? Tight and short, sore, loose and stretched out provides no support. We kind of need to be able to do both, or kind of live in that middle ground where things aren't getting stretched out and things aren't getting shortened as well. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, where, for instance, I was talking about earlier, my mom telling me to sit up straight wasn't exactly working. So your body is meant to be in quote unquote perfect alignment. And when your posture starts to change, this influences your alignment, and there's tissue within your body called fascia. It is all over your body. It connects everything to each other. It separates all the muscles from each other. That's a topic for another day. I feel like that should be a drinking game. Like, how many times does Dom say? That's a conversation for another day on one of her live videos. Truth be told, I have this problem with, I want to give you all the information right now so you can start leading a better life. That's where I stand. So, back to fascia. So, when we start to adopt these different positions than our body is naturally meant to hold, fascia tries to make this newfound posture of yours a little bit easier. And how it does that is the fascial tissues start to tighten up, they start to kind of bunch up, and they start to hold on to that shortened body position, or in the case of the outstretched ones, kind of holding out that elongated position. It just makes your body feel like it is able to maintain those postures, positions easier. So that's why with every one of my clients, and sometimes you dabble into this in classes as well, we start always with like full body soft tissue release. It gives you better, faster results, lessens your chance of injury, and there is more mobility. And just these couple of things that I'll touch on today, maybe I'll make another video about the rest later, will be huge factors in the results you are wanting to see from whatever your chosen mode of exercise is. Yoga, strength training. If you're a runner, cool. It's going to make you faster. So what can you do with this information? Well, I want to give you a little tidbit of what you can do in your everyday life to start existing in a more neutral alignment, a more neutral posture. So for instance, you can start by just playing around with more of a neutral position with your pelvis. So I'll give you just one tidbit information, and since we were talking about a little bit about seated positions today, we'll kind of talk about that. So when you're coming up to a chair, it's going to be like a how to sit in a chair guide. Think about pushing your butt back and down when you sit. So back and down, almost this feeling like, I hear this quote, this cue a lot, and I'm not a fan of it. It doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth, but maybe it will resonate with you, is blossoming your butt cheeks. It's gonna feel like they're open, relaxed, loose, pushing your butt down and back when you come into that seated position in the chair. Once you get into the chair, an additional thing you can do is kind of reach underneath and lift and move some butt cheek muscle out of the way so you actually feel your sits bones on your chair, okay? So you want to actually feel your sits bones on your chair. Another good indicator that you are in a good seated position is you're going to start to feel that natural curve coming back to your lower back. So remember back when I had my little pelvis out and I was talking about that outstretched position. So additionally, when we tilt the pelvis back, not only are we outstretching the lower back, but we're also losing that natural curve in the lower back as well. So if you can find that nice neutral position when you're seated, feel free to shift around a little bit. It's going to take practice. It is not going to be an overnight fix, because keep in mind, there's still those tight fascial tissues that you're having to deal with as well. But right away, when you start to do this, you're going to feel like you're sitting up taller in your chair. You're going to feel a decrease in discomfort in the lower back. It's going to be there. I know, because I work with a lot of people with this as well, just the simple act of sitting in a chair. So that's all I got for you today. So give it a try. Let me know how it goes. Do it right now. Like, seriously, find a chair nearby. I mean, I'm kind of at my little dining room table makeshift office here, so I'm surrounded by chairs, but if you're not by one, give it a try and then come back and let me know in the comments, or shoot me a DM. Let me know how that resonated with you. If some of those cues are kind of not making sense in your mind, that's not an issue too. Let me know. I'll try to work it out with you, see if we can get you going into that nicer, more neutral alignment, and a decrease of chance that you will have pelvic floor dysfunction, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to pee their pants. Nobody wants to be feeling pressure in their pelvic floor. Nobody wants to be dealing with prolapse, and nobody wants to be dealing with shitty sex. It's a fact. If somebody feels otherwise, you can let me know, but I don't know anybody who wants to live with any of those. So that's all I've got for you today. So like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to be playing around a little bit with different times. I love the consistency of knowing, people knowing that I'm going to show up at a certain time. But again, our family life is just changing. I have a 3-year-old, I have an almost 18-month-old, and the sun is coming out at 6 in the morning, and they're like, hey, it's time to get up. Oh, got a little question here. Question, and full disclosure, I haven't listened to your video yet. Can you have pelvic floor dysfunction if you haven't given birth? Yeah, that's exactly what this video is about, actually. So definitely go back and listen to the replay, and let me know if you have any questions. This one specifically is about how posture can lead to pelvic floor dysfunction. But yeah, if you need a little bit more about that, please just shoot me a DM and let me know. So you don't need to have kids to help pelvic floor dysfunction. Posture, injury, surgery, male, female, males can have pelvic floor dysfunction. A little bit more common in women than men, but still possible. Athleticism, in certain cases, weight can be a contributing factor, mismanagement of the distribution of core pressure, all sorts of stuff. So thanks so much for tuning in this afternoon. I'm going to try to make this a 1:30 thing next Monday as well. Monday gets a little crazy, but I'm going to try to stick to that for now, see how it works out. But if you have recommendations on a time that you think is better, I will definitely also take those recommendations, because at the end of the day, I'm just looking to make people happy. I'm relatively flexible as long as it's nap time. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will be here next week. Same time, 1:30 p.m. I'm also changing the name. I did kind of wake up like this. I did fix my hair a little bit, and then I had a workout, so I was hoping to get a shower in. So maybe next week this will look a little better. Anyways, thanks so much for tuning in, and talk to you in the DMs or next week. Bye. Hey, Brittany. I just had to give a little shout out.